If you've ever been told, "Don't worry, the advice is free," I want you to picture a vending machine. You don't pay at the front, but it still takes money every time you press a button. That's your retirement plan. Here's the ugly truth. A lot of 401k menus and recommended fund lists quietly steer you into higher fee funds, not because they're better, but because someone gets paid when you pick them. The mechanism has polite names: revenue sharing, 12b1 fees, preferred fund lists, but the vibe is the same. Legal kickback energy. And there's one line on your plan's fee page that basically confesses it. I'll show you what to look for. Because 0.25 to 1% per year doesn't sound like much until it compounds into years of work. So let's map the money trail, because once you see the plumbing, you can't unsee it. Revenue sharing, in plain English, is when a fund company pays the platform around your retirement plan for distribution or servicing. Translation: pay us and we'll give your fund shelf space. We'll put it on the menu, we'll make it the default, we'll put it on the recommended list. Same product, different placement, different paycheck. And here's the part that's not a typo. You can pay the fund's expense ratio and still pay separate plan fees on top of that. People hear my 401k costs 0.20% and assume that's everything, but the expense ratio is just what the fund skims out of the investment every year. Meanwhile, the plan can also charge admin fees, record-keeping fees, advisor fees, all as separate line items, or worse, bundled so you don't see the true split. Now let's talk about 12b1 fees, because this is where it gets really sneaky. A 12b1 fee is an ongoing fee inside some mutual funds meant for marketing and distribution. It's literally baked into the fund's expenses, so you don't write a check. It just quietly reduces your return. And under the rule, these fees can be as high as 1% a year in certain setups, with a common breakdown being a distribution piece and a shareholder servicing piece. You'll see it called 12b1 distribution, or sometimes it's just folded into a bigger expense number, so it's easy to miss. This clicked for me when I realized fees aren't a one-time hit. They're a hole in the bucket. The market pours water in, your contributions, employer match, investment returns, but fees leak out every single year, forever. Even if the market does great, the leak is still leaking. And if the market has a bad year, you feel the leak even more because it's taking a cut of a smaller pie. Now anchor this to reality. In 2024, actively managed equity mutual funds averaged about 0.65% in annual expense ratios, while index equity mutual funds averaged about 0.5%. That's not a rounding error, that's a 10 times difference for doing basically the same job, getting you broad stock market exposure. And for 401k equity mutual funds, the average expense ratio was around 0.26%, which tells you something else. Retirement plans often sit in the middle, not as cheap as the best index options, but still collecting a steady toll. Why are retirement plans such a perfect place for this? Because the menu is limited. You're busy, contributions are on autopilot, defaults do the work, and most people never open the fee disclosure unless something feels wrong. So the incentives get warped. The best fund for you might be the worst fund for whoever's getting paid behind the scenes. If a fund kicks back more revenue sharing, it can get more attention, better placement, and more assets. Not because it's the best deal for you, but because it's the best deal for them. And here's the open loop I promised. This shows up in two places on your paperwork, and one of them is designed so you won't read it. Next, I'll show you how best interest can still land you in the kickback lane. Here's the part that should make you question everything. A lot of the people using the words best interest are not promising what you think they're promising. There are basically two worlds. One is broker-dealer land, governed by regulation best interest, or Reg BI. The other is RIA land, registered investment advisors, who are fiduciaries under the Investment Advisors Act. In normal human language, Reg BI is point in time. It's when I recommend this thing to you, I can't put my interest ahead of yours. But it's tied to the recommendation. It's not the same as, I'm on the hook to keep monitoring your whole situation forever. RIA fiduciary duty is broader. It's the full relationship. It's not just don't screw them on this trade. It's don't build their whole plan around your own payday. And if you have a conflict, you have to disclose it in a way a real person can understand. Now here's where the loophole lives. Best interest does not automatically mean lowest cost. Under Reg BI, costs have to be considered, but the rule doesn't force the cheapest option. In practice, what a lot of firms aim for is a defensible recommendation, something they can document, something that checks the boxes: risk, reward, time horizon, and yeah, fees, somewhere in the stack. So if you're expecting best interest to protect you from high-fee funds that just happen to pay more revenue sharing, that's not how it plays out. The system can still funnel you into the expensive lane as long as they can argue it was reasonable. And the disclosure game is brutal. You'll see language like, may receive compensation, or may receive revenue sharing. That's the kind of sentence that makes your eyes glaze over, and that's the point. Because the thing that matters isn't may. The thing that matters is who gets paid, how much, and does the payout change depending on what you pick. This isn't conspiracy talk. The SEC has brought enforcement actions where the core issue was undisclosed incentives, like payments tied to steering retirement assets into certain accounts, or revenue sharing arrangements that increased client costs. Regulators call these material conflicts because a reasonable investor would care. You care because it's your money. Quick micro story, because I see this pattern over and over. You've got an old 401k, you want help rolling it over. You're not trying to day trade, you just want a clean setup. And the person helping you starts steering you toward an IRA platform and a set of funds that they really like. Maybe those funds are fine, but maybe behind the scenes that platform has a preferred list, or the fund share class has built-in distribution fees, or the firm gets paid more if you land in option A instead of option B. The end result is the same. Your retirement dollars become a paycheck stream for someone else. That's the absurdity of this arrangement. The better you do at saving, the more the system can siphon off without you noticing. It's a tiny percent, repeated every year on a growing base. That's the dream business model, just not for you. So let's get practical. What do you actually check today to tell if you're in the kickback lane? First quick win. Pull your 401k fund lineup and sort by expense ratio. Most plans let you export it, or at least scroll it. Circle anything that's wildly higher than index level costs for the same category. If you see a plain vanilla S&P 500 or total market option at something like 0.3 to 10%, cool. But if your large cap fund is 0.7% and it's basically doing large cap stocks, that should set off alarms. Second, open the fund's documents and look for distribution fees, specifically 12b1. If the fund has a 12b1 fee, it will show up. Sometimes it's labeled clearly, sometimes it's buried under distribution and service. Either way, it's a real ongoing cost. Also watch the share class. In a good 401k, you often see institutional share classes that strip out a lot of the junk fees. If you're seeing share classes that tend to carry extra distribution costs, that's a clue the plan menu wasn't built to be your cheapest possible option. Third, hunt for revenue sharing language in your plan disclosures. The phrases are usually boring on purpose. Look for revenue sharing, shareholder servicing, sub-TA, platform fee, marketing support, or anything that sounds like fund companies pay us for administrative services. Fourth, ask blunt questions and don't accept a non-answer. Email HR or the plan contact and ask, who gets paid from revenue sharing in this plan, how much, and does the amount change depending on which funds participants choose? If they can't answer, that's a problem by itself. Fifth, do a reality check on what normal costs look like. In 2024, index equity mutual funds averaged about 0.5%. Meanwhile, the average expense ratio for equity mutual funds held in 401ks was around 0.26%. And actively managed equity mutual funds averaged about 0.65%. So if you're sitting at 0.80% in a core option, you're not unlucky. You're being harvested. And if your plan menu is just bad, you still have moves. Pick the least worst low-cost index options you do have. Push HR to benchmark the plan and add cheaper share classes. And if there's a brokerage window, you can use it carefully because sometimes it opens access to lower-cost funds, but it can also add extra fees or tempt you into dumb trades. Now you've got the playbook. And once you do this one time, you'll never look at a fund menu the same way again. The whole shift is simple. Stop picking funds based on brand names and start picking based on who gets paid and how much. Your move today is to open your largest 401k holding, find the expense ratio, then check whether it has a 12B1 or distribution fee in the fund docs. Drop what you find in the comments. And if you want part 2, I'm breaking down how record keepers price free plans and where the admin fees hide. So hit subscribe and watch that next.